I feel a bit nervous recording this, I'm not gonna lie, but I want to kind of share my life. I've never done anything like this. Maybe a long video, I'm not sure. So, I was born in 1987. Me, I was born to a twin sister, I've got a twin sister. I'm 6 minutes older than her. Now, I don't know anything much about my birth. I don't know how I was born and all that kind of stuff. I don't think many people do. But there's one big life moment that happened for me that I do know that happened, and it was a big traumatic event. So I think I'd have to look at them, I'd have to kind of remember back here, but I think I was around 2 months old. My father decided to take his own life. I like to kind of understand maybe why, and I think the reason why I think he did it was because there was lots of pressure, I think from family, from other really things, but I don't want to spend all this video going into it. But I think that needs to be said early on because I feel that the shape of the rest of this video has a big weight towards that as well, because the way that my life has turned out, the trajectory that it's had, I think it would have been a lot different had I had a father figure or a man within my life. Not to say I haven't had father figures, but my dad. So I never really knew my dad. I never really got to know who he was. Now, for the next few years that come after that, again, I can't remember too much. I remember that my mom was around a lot. I remember my nan and granddad used to pick us up on weekends, kind of similar thing. And then I think you'd have to forgive me here with the dates. It's a bit messy. I'm close to 40 and some of the dates aren't all in the calendar here as well. I think it was around the age of around 8 or maybe 9, around that age. I think my mum was going through different partners. She had different partners here, there and everywhere. And I just remember one of them, his name was Andy. And she actually burnt his house down. I don't know what happened around it. This isn't, again, I don't really know too much details of what happened, but the one thing that I do know is that she actually ended up going to prison for this. And I think if my memory collects, it was probably just over a year or something, which means for me and my sister, we got that first taste of what it's like to live in someone else's house that wasn't our own or wasn't our family members. And we ended up going to live with one of her friends who at the time they were lovely people, I'm not going to lie. They were lovely, beautiful people, but the other people they used to hang around with, they were dodgy characters, you can say. And I still remember there was lots of drugs and drinks and parties and things that happened. And we lived there for about like a year. From about the age of 8, so we were kind of in and out of school, and sometimes I'd see my grandparents, sometimes I remember one time my auntie should take us out to like a local place where we could go swimming. So that happened then. Now I can't remember too much, but I think she came out of prison and we went back to live with her for a bit, and she ended up actually meeting another guy. I'm going to call him the Rat because that's basically what I call him, and you'll know exactly why I call him that in a short while. So I think she was on and off dating with him. He lived up in Bury St Edmunds. We were going up to see him. We were coming back. And basically what happened is that she was getting quite close to this guy. And she was pulling us out of school to go visit him. And we used to hang out with his children. They weren't the very nicest children to hang out with. And my memory serves me here. But I remember one time we were back living in town. And we were back living with my mum. And I remember one day that I woke up, my sister and I, we woke up, we went downstairs, and my mum used to always kind of sleep on the sofa. She was quite a heavy sleeper at times, and we came back and there was a letter for us, and it said like something along the lines of, don't open this, take it to your grandparents. And at the time, our grandparents only lived like a 10-15 minute walk away, so we'd packed our bags, we walked round, and I remember we sat on the steps of my nan and granddad's house inside on their stairwell, and we opened the letter. And the letter, something along the lines of, hey, look, I've gone off with this guy. This is my second taste of being abandoned, you say, as a child. I've gone off with this guy. Your nan and granddad will look after you, which I think came as a big shock to everyone because, again, we weren't expecting it. You hadn't really kind of let us know. So now we were in this position where my nan and granddad, they had me and my sister, and we were kind of going through, I think, by age 10, 11, we were about to go through school and lots of things. They'd just, basically, both of them had just retired as well. And so from that moment on, my nan and granddad had to make a decision. Do we look after these children, or do we put them into the care system? Now, my nan and granddad, amazing people, they're both passed, unfortunately now, but they made the decision to give up their retirement and to basically become carers for my sister and I until we were at that age where we can officially be adults and look after ourselves. So we ended up going to live with my grandparents, and we lived with them all the way through our school years. There were some days where they couldn't actually really look after us. Maybe they were tired or they had things that they wanted to do with their life. And I remember that we had to go to the next few towns that were above and would be in and out of other people's kind of foster homes, you may say, like people who were giving their home out, they'll take kind of children in. And my sister, luckily enough, we were both able to go to a few families for, I think they call it respite care there as well. But then fast forward, so we were living with my grandparents and everything was fine. And I'm so grateful that they were able to give their retirement for us. I certainly wouldn't be in this position talking to you today like this had they not done that. So I'm forever grateful for who they are as human beings and family and being able to do it. There was some, I would say, resentment that come from maybe other members of the family because we were living with our grandparents. But again, I don't want to kind of talk about that today. I don't know how other people fail. This video isn't about talking to those other people and their thoughts and feelings towards it. But I remember my nan, my sister and I, we wanted to give back. And we've been brought up that if someone gives you something, you give something back. So we were very heavily involved in the foster care system. The Essex County Council was the borough that I live in. And we would always go and we'd do these events. We'd go away. We'd help other children in care who were not maybe as grateful or in a privileged position as we were to be able to stay with family who were maybe living in care system or foster homes, etc. So we'd go on these events and we'd arrange these days and we'd meet up with local councillors on how they could improve the experience for young people in care. And then I went to, when we were in and out of school, I've always been quite an academic, so we were in and out of school, and I remember I know that there was two choices that I would have to make. I could have gone down the pathway with where my mum was going down that pathway and drinks, drug, alcohol, all that kind of stuff as well. I could go down the other pathway where I would really fight to make, I didn't want to be that person. I had a decision. Do I just go and be that label of what maybe I was born in, or do I want to fight that system? And I was fighting against the system. I knew from an early stage I wanted to go to university. I wanted to get an education. I wanted to make a success of myself. And I remember going to school, one of my big things is I don't want to get in detention. I don't want to get in trouble. I was like what you call a prefect, or I got bullied for it heavily. I was constantly bullied in school, obviously being ginger, and I wanted to actually succeed. So when kids played up, I requested to move classrooms. I still remember even my first week, and when I first started, my geography teacher threatened to give me a detention, and I cried because I didn't want a detention. I didn't want to feel like I was getting in trouble. And I didn't. I went through all the school and I didn't get detention. I was going to all the after school classes and the learning zones, etc., because I understood the importance of it. And then I worked through, and we did A-levels and worked through that as well. And then I ended up going to university, went down to the University of Southampton. I did my degree, and then I did my master's down there as well, which my nan and granddad were incredibly proud of, for me being able to do that. Now, all the while, there was this, my mum had kind of slowly come back into my life, and there was some fracture in terms of how I engaged with her, how we spoke to her, and how we kind of maybe learned to forgive someone who could do that to their children. And I think that's big one thing that I've gone through a lot of my life is trying to forgive those people, forgiving my father, forgiving my mother for basically kind of saying, hey, I don't want you, I'm going to abandon you, I'm going to leave for something else, be it off of this planet or be it for another man, or those kind of things as well. And then anyway, I went and ended up going to uni. I got my degree and ended up then working in the city. I went and worked in the city from the age of around like 8, stayed in Southampton for a bit from the age of 21 to for about 5-6 years. I went in and worked into the city in London. And that's where my nan and granddad actually had passed away. During that time, they both passed away, and during that time, so that's why I had to eventually go and kind of live in London, because I couldn't live in the family house anymore. We ended up actually buying it, my sister and I. But fast forward, London life was good, and I was working in and out of advertising, marketing roles, like had some sales roles, had some marketing roles. I was working And then it was around just before I actually turned. I'd done some crazy things in that time. I remember going out. I'm on a second date, a second Tinder date. I met a first date in London, and then we went on a second Tinder date to Rome. I remember I would set up a beards in black and white page on Instagram, and I said I'm flying out to San Francisco for 2 weeks, and a random guy from a town near me. We just ended up going out there for 2 weeks together. Totally surreal, but I was more about spontaneity. And the real spontaneity actually kind of showed up near about the age of 30, actually, just before I turned 30. I was speaking to a girl at the time on Tinder, and she said, oh, I'm just in Malaysia, I'll come back to London, we'll meet up, etc. And we were planning on meeting up, and I remember we'd booked something in the diary, and then a few days before she'd messaged me saying, hey, I can't meet up anymore, I'm flying, I'm going to live in Australia for a year. And in my mind, I was like, what do you mean you're going to go and live in Australia for a year? And she's like, yeah, you can get like a visa out there, you can go work out there, etc. And I looked into it and I'm like, wow, I never thought it would be easy as that to go to another country like she did. So I ended up applying for the visa, luckily just before my 30th, and I quit my job. Like I said, I'm quite spontaneous. I quit my job and I went out and landed in Australia. I still remember that I was thinking Australia to be this big heat thing, and it was really cold in Melbourne, and I really struggled because it was colder in Australia than where it was in England, where I'd actually left. So I stayed there for a while, in and out of jobs, doing kind of 3 months, random jobs, removals, all that kind of stuff as well. At the time, I was actually running like an online beard magazine, the Beard Mag, so that was kind of fueling me. I had a little bit of money coming in, and I actually had like a drop shipping company around that time. So this was about 9 years ago that I did that. And then I'd always planned to go from Melbourne up to North Australia, and on the trip, so I went up there, and halfway up I was in around Brisbane, went on a night out, and I met this girl on a night out, and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we kind of hit it off, and we were talking, and the conversation flowed, and we ended up actually kind of walking till about 8 a.m. in the morning, and I was like, I need to go back, I need to sleep, I've got to check out at 10 o'clock and continue my travels, thinking nothing of it. And then we travelled up a little bit further to Rainbow Beach. It was just a bit north of Brisbane, and then we went out for like a party, and I was just so exhausted. The girls that I was traveling at the time, it was me and 3 other girls. We were traveling in a car in the summer heat of Australia, and we didn't have aircon. And I can't do this. So I actually ended up going back to Australia with this girl that I'd just met. I ended up moving in, and all the while I was like, hey, this is going to be temporary. I'm going to go to Sydney. I'm going to go and get some work, all that kind of stuff. It didn't actually happen that way. I ended up going up to Bundaberg when I did my farm work, and there I worked for 13 weeks. I couldn't get this girl out of my head. We were speaking non-stop all the time as well. So as soon as the farm work ended, I ended up going back to then move in with her. So I actually moved in with her, almost like you would say, it's almost like a second date. And I lived with her friend at the time, and she was living with a 3-year-old, and we just were living together. I was in and out doing construction work, all that kind of stuff in Australia. And then come the time, we had to have a conversation about what happens next, because my 2 years in Australia would have been up. I had to go back to the UK, and she was like, I love travel. Luckily, she's a traveller. She's like, hey, I love travel, let's do it together. So she got all of her passport done, all of her visa and everything that comes with it. And we decided, well, we'll do Asia. We did 6 months of Asia. Went all the way up through Thailand, across into Laos, down Vietnam, back through Thailand, Cambodia, Malaysia, Philippines, all in 6 months. Now, actually, that was the first time where I really got into like video content creation. I remember I'd got all the gear. I'd bought like this video camera with this fancy mic and everything like that. And I remember being on a bus. We were driving to the embassy with the first week we were in Thailand, and we were driving on a bus, and I was trying to record myself because I was going to be a travel vlogger, and that was going to be my next entrepreneurship journey. And what happened is that then I couldn't even film next to her. I couldn't film. I didn't know what I was going to say, and I froze up. I literally had the camera, and I went to the back of the bus to try and film again. She turned around. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore. A few days later, my friend, who's a YouTuber, he said, no, just do this. Got the camera out. You got nothing to worry about. And he just hit record. And from there, I kind of got into getting the reps, my first content creation, speaking on video. So we travelled a long time. Now, she actually ended up she had to send her passport back to Australia, and it ended up getting lost in the post. So we had to extend it. She had to go get a new passport, which did mean at the end of our 6 months, she would have had to go back to Australia to get a new stamp so she can come to the UK. And I'll tell you that's an important reason in a short second. So we travelled, amazing. And that's why I really caught the travel bug. I love to travel. We were in and out of hostels, staying different places, meeting lots of people, exploring, going scuba diving, everything and anything you can do. It felt such a buzz to be able to do it. Now, towards the end of that 6 months, this is when COVID was really starting to come. We went into the Philippines, they were testing for coughs, lots of things were kind of happening right there as well. And she had to go back to Australia to get the passport stamp. Now, at that time, passport at Australia, we hadn't realised. She went back, expecting her to get the next flight out to come back to the UK after she's got a stamp. It was literally 2 weeks after we'd separated, in terms of she'd gone to Australia, I'd gone back to the UK, that they actually said to her, Australia's in lockdown, you can't leave. So there was no way that she could leave Australia to come see me, and I was in the UK. I just got a flat, moved in, everything was in complete lockdown. That was actually probably my first real attempt during lockdown. I was like, you know what, I'm bored. I'm in a sales job and I was working 40 hours a week. But outside of that, we couldn't do much. We couldn't go out, we couldn't go clubbing, we couldn't go play sports or anything. And that's when really I got my first step into TikTok and content creation. I would start recording videos. I sounded like a robot, but I was addicted to it. I had a whiteboard in the background tracking my likes, my saves, my follows every single day. I was going live. I knew all of my followers' lives, and I told them I'm going live at this time every day. I was going live anywhere from 20 to 30 hours every single week. And I had no intention. I'm on TikTok for fun. I just want to have some fun with it. And I soon started noticing these patterns that were arriving with my content. Some videos got me more followers and it almost become addicted to me. And I was talking and interviewing and speaking to people, and actually I got my first 100,000 followers in 6 months. And I had people reaching out to me saying, how are you doing this? How are you growing so fast? And I said, I'll teach you. I'll tell you everything that I'm doing. And so I was booking these one-on-one meetings with them for like 15, 20 quid. I didn't know how to price myself or anything like that. And it was that time when someone reached out to me on Facebook, my old business coach, and he gave me some tips. Here's how you can make more money on live. I applied his tip and I made $1,000 in about 5 days, I think it was. So, hey, who is this guy? He seems pretty okay. And I ended up hiring him as a business coach. And during the time of when I'd started on TikTok in probably what would it have been? Yeah, in about 4 or 5 months, 6 months, I've grown to 100,000 followers. He was teaching me how to monetize and how to make money from it. And I started making more money than I was making from my 9 to 5 at that time. And it was the same year on my birthday, my wife said to me, you've got to make a decision because you're now your time is getting pulled away from your 9 to 5 and you're making more from TikTok is what you do from your 9 to 5. And I'd had a bit of emergency savings, like 10, 20 grand savings. Like, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take a punt. I'm going to do it. I was scared as anything. And I remember the day after my birthday, I handed it in and my business coach at the time said, hey, this is the last time you're ever going to have to work for someone else or ever do a CV or an interview. That was 6 years ago, by the way. Still haven't done it. And then from there, things just went crazy. My account just took off. TikTok reached out to me. I had some brands reaching out to me, wanting to work with me as well, making decent money. But there was a slight shift at the time. My wife and I, we ended up kind of getting our own place together. So we lived together for the first time. And we bought, I remember the first year, I bought her a brand new MacBook Air and she bought me a drone. Most expensive, two of the most expensive presents that I've ever got from a Christmas. And it was around, again, that time where she was then, by the way, she wasn't working all this. I was making enough that we could cover her wages. That's probably a different story, a different video for a different story. But she hasn't worked ever since I've been on TikTok because I've been able to make enough to help support our family and our household without her having to go out. And then we ended up going back. Living to the family home. The one family home that I bought, ended up buying with my sister when my nan and granddad passed away. And we ended up kind of renovating it and doing all the things there as well. Now, during that time, the business was doing well. We were making 40, 50,000 a month, but I'd hired a big team and there was like 7 of us and there was lots of wage expenses. There was a lot of churn with the people coming in that we were working with. I was just focused, how can I make more money without worrying what I was spending or the client experience and everything that I was working on. It was just working 14-hour days non-stop, 20 minutes for lunch, 20 minutes for dinner. Wasn't really being a good boyfriend at the time. But then we found out we were going to have our first child. I'll call him just A, Master A. I don't like sharing my kids' names here. And that's when we were just doing well. Business was doing well. We were traveling. We were getting around. We were doing lots of things. The team was taking over. But things started kind of shifting quite heavily for me around the time that I had my son. And I can't honestly put the finger on what it was. But The business, I was resenting the business because I was working so much. I was never really round to see my son. I remember still taking calls in and around when he was actually being born. I was checking messages, checking in with the team, and etc. I don't think I even took a week off after he was born to take some time off, because it was just all business, business, business. And we lived like that for a while, and we were making good money. But then I started pivoting, I started changing niches, and it just didn't feel aligned anymore. And I could never figure out what it was. I tried changing, going to an office, I rented an office. I tried just selling different ways, and none of it really would seem to align. And at the time, my TikTok was kind of falling flat. It wasn't too many kind of like people coming in. The growth had all slowed down as well, the opportunities, and I just couldn't figure out why. And I went to a dark place actually mentally, and antidepressants. I was on therapy, trying to figure out about my childhood. It was something in my childhood that had kind of happened to me. Then we found out we were going to have my second, and it was scary because we weren't putting in as much money. I was spending a lot more, and I had like 100,000 in my bank at one point, and then we were slowly streeping into debt, and the house was going into arrears, and we had to make the decision. I come to the decision with my sister. She needed some money, and I needed it to sell the family home, and we ended up selling the family home about 2 years ago now. So we sold the family home, and the next step was, well, what do we want to do now? Do we want the rent? Do we want to go and pay all these bills and do everything? And we were just looking at the bank account. It's like, well, the business isn't looking like it's changing. So we ended up buying a motorhome, and we moved into a motorhome. So we sold the house in October 2024, and we ended up moving into a motorhome. Me, my wife, the dog, had a 7-month, my Miss B, who's my second, and Master A, who's my boy. So we were all living in this tiny motorhome because we wanted that travel bug, and we had never really done it. We didn't want to be stuck in one place all the time. I wanted the freedom. I'd slowly started building the business that could give me that freedom. And what happened is we then travelled. Amazing. We went all down the south coast of the UK. Then we went across and we were down through France, north of Spain, Portugal, south of Spain, back up through France. We did Scotland, we did Wales, we did Northern Ireland, we did Ireland. And in the same year we went and we did Australia as well. And it was a crazy experience. And we were living frugally. The business was still running. I was working a few hours a day. I remember sitting in the front seat trying to pick up some office jobs with a really tiny little light that I was working on as well, trying to answer calls, not waking the kids. It was crazy. I'd go into little cafes and work there. I'd record videos outside the van. Now, during that time, I'd shifted niches. I was talking a lot more about business coaching and everything. I wasn't talking about TikTok growth, the one that had served me so well for so many years, because in my mind, I was like, I just don't know what I want to do anymore. I was freaking out. I thought that I'd lost it. I had all these feelings inside, these limiting beliefs and these imposter syndromes that was really kind of pulling me down a lot more as well. And then it was only last year we were out in Australia seeing my wife's family. She's Australian. That we found out we were pregnant with our third, Master J. He's born now. He's 6 weeks old, and so we knew we couldn't live in the motorhome. So we ended up selling the motorhome back in February this year, and then we've now moved back into a house. But the way that the business has picked up and business is going well. My TikTok is growing again, and I've got the system that I work in. I'm posting like 5 to 10 times a day. It doesn't take me too long to do, and I just feel really grateful that we've been able to find a really nice place. And we've already been on a family holiday. We were on a family holiday last week. This week we've just booked 3 weeks over in Holland in Belgium, and I don't work more than 3 hours a day. Now I'm working. It's 11:20 as I record this on a Wednesday morning, and I'm just working because my wife is taking the kids to the library, and that's what they're doing. And I can choose when I want. I can work from where I want, and I've got this freedom. I'm not tied down by calls. I'm not tied down by fretting what I should be posting today. And my youngest, he's already been to like 11 or 12 countries, and he's just turned 4. And I look back at why I'm doing this, and I'm doing this because I'm kind of speaking to the young boy. The young boy that I wish that he'd have his parents around, and what it feels like to have like a present dad and a present mum and someone to speak to, someone to play with, and to feel like you've got that family unit, and to see the world and to make the memories and to make the experiences. And I know that if I was working a 9 to 5, I wouldn't be able to do that. I've worked 9 to 5s where I was leaving at 6 a.m. in the morning and coming back at 6 p.m. at night. So I fought really hard to build this life where my kids can wake up and I'm there, where we can sit down and have a family dinner, where they know that I'm literally only upstairs if they ever need me, where they can cry on me, where they can cuddle me, where they can kiss me, when I know that I can support my wife and be there for my wife as well as my kids. Yesterday I took a call and had a baby strapped to my chest, which people think is crazy, but I don't think it is. And this is my story. And I mean, I've missed out so much. There's so much stories that I can say to it. I could probably be here and write a feature length film, but I don't even know how I'd end this video really. But I just want to say, here I am today. It's a Wednesday morning. I've got holidays coming up. We're booking travel for next year, and realistically, a lot of this was because I was just tenacious, because I wanted it so bad and I was not going to give up. Even the days where we weren't making too much money, I knew that I couldn't stop, and I just fought really hard for it. The days when my TikTok was not growing and things weren't working out, I just kept posting anyway because I didn't want to feel like it, because I know deep down that there's a bigger thing to life, and this is what I want. For me, it's about being a present creator. It's about being someone who's going to be present, going to be someone who's going to be a present father, a present husband, a present friend, and that's why I'm building this today, because I want to live life. I want to travel. I want to see things. I don't want to live on someone else's time or someone else's calendar. And I've made mistakes. I've got lessons, but I should probably end the video here because I'm rambling. But if you've watched this video, I thank you to the bottom of my heart, and I appreciate you and I love you. Thank you.